Here's the thing. You don't become free and have a lovely, spacious life just because you become self-employed. You become free and have a lovely, spacious life because as you become self-employed, you intentionally create a different experience of work for yourself. You have to make some very intentional shifts when you go from being an employee to being self-employed, especially if your goal is to have more freedom and ease and spaciousness in your life, right? I think a lot of people leave the W-2 employee world, but they don't leave the mindset, and they also bring their nervous system with them into their own business. And so they recreate the same problems, right? Then there's 6 months to a year into being self-employed, and they're burnt out. They're available at all hours. They're answering calls and texts on the weekends. They're overextending. And it's like they didn't make any there's no benefits right now because now they're just self-employed and overworked and don't have the benefits of being an employee. So I think in this video we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how you have to make intentional changes. That's why this video is also going to be about boundaries as a self-employed person, as a VA, that I put into place. But the reason why I knew how to put the boundaries into place was because I had burnt out so many times before. So I think my vantage point, I had a little bit maybe of an advantage when I became an entrepreneur because I had burnt out so bad 4 times. So I had learned some lessons and I had learned them hard. And I was like, there is no way I am going back to that place. And so, but I think a lot of people who want to start a business or even just want to, become an entrepreneur, make some side money or whatever, they go at it, they do it with a different motivation. And then a few months down the road, they're like, why doesn't this feel easeful or more free? Why do I still feel the same way? And sometimes maybe worse than when I was an employee. It's because you brought yourself with you. You're literally recreating it. So there needs to be an intentional, I would say, downshift if you want to create more ease and spaciousness in your business versus what you felt as an employee. I'm speaking, of course, as a highly sensitive person, and I'm kind of orienting more that way. But even if you don't identify that way and you just want to feel a little more spacious and easeful as you create your own business, you need to go about making decisions and choices in a different way. It's a different lens. So that takes a little bit of a perspective shift. And so that's what I hope this video will help you to arrive at as we move through it. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about where I came from and then the boundaries I put in place and some of my history with nervous system stuff. The nervous system healing piece is huge. You can't make these intentional shifts if you have, no knowledge of your nervous system and nervous system healing in general. Um, so let's get into it. So I started my entrepreneurial journey not because I wanted to be an entrepreneur, start a business, had cool business idea. There was none of that. I went out on my own kind of out of necessity because I had been in so many employee jobs and finally read the writing on the wall that I'm not meant to sustain that type of a job. Like I just kept failing and failing and failing. And it wasn't for lack of knowledge or skill sets or any of that. It was because my nervous system couldn't sustain it as a highly sensitive person. I'm going to lean back here and put my feet back up. Um, so I kind of started my entrepreneurial journey out of a necessity to, of course, find a way to make money that wasn't a W-2 job and also do it while not killing my nervous system again, right? So my intention going in and when I started out as a VA was I'm seeking ease and spaciousness in my day. I'm seeking to work less hours on the computer a day. At that time, I was working at an art center, nonprofit. And, I was essentially at a desk all day. I mean, yeah, I was peopling as well. So I was peopling all day, a lot of the day, and at a desk computer, 8 hours a day, seven, whatever. I wanted to work less on the computer because I also knew I could do a lot of work in 3 to 4 hours versus the 8 or whatever, right? And I wanted the freedom to be able to be done when I felt done. So I knew working for people, they might give me projects that would be due a week or so away. And I wanted the freedom to be able to work on them when I had the energy to and stop if I needed to on a specific day. So these were like my goals. My goals are very nervous system centered. I needed to create a spacious, easeful, regulated, essentially business ecosystem for myself that was intentionally slower, quieter, and more spacious than any workspace I had ever been before. Because I knew if that was my world, I could do good work, and not only just do good work, I did good work at my jobs, but I could do good work over a sustained years and years. And so far I have, right? I started that in 2019 and I'm still here and it's 2026. And I I have never gone back to working 40 hours a week since then. And I think this is a huge piece of why, because I learned finally myself that I can't sustain that. And so I created my own thing where I can do it for as long as I'm capable of doing this type of work per week and do it well and do it for great people. So, um, you know, I did all of this intentionally. I also truly believed, and this is a key part, and I'm not going to avoid talking about it. I also truly believed, you know, you all probably know by now I'm a former nun. I have a deep spiritual life, and um, I knew that if I followed my body's lead and didn't go back to killing myself by getting another W-2 job, that God slash the universe slash the creator, my ancestors would all support me and help me to thrive in that. I believed I would be blessed by honoring my body and my system, right? And I feel like I have been. And that has been the whole um, baseline for my courage to do it my way, is because I believed deeply that God would bless me and that this was the path forward for me and that I just needed to forge ahead and that God would keep blessing me. And He has. I mean, I have survived and more than survived. I have, made a successful business my way for over these 7 years and been able to provide for myself, albeit in creative ways, but I've never been in want of anything. And so that is also foundational. I think you can't go into this with a scarcity mindset. You have to go into it truly honoring your body and your system and truly believing that, God or the universe, however you orient, will bless your efforts to honor yourself, your body, your system, right? This is kind of, they're connected. So that's a big piece for me. And I still believe that today. I would say even this YouTube channel, starting this, getting it going, all of that, I still have that underlying, orientation around this as well. That's another example. So my point is here that if we don't create the ecosystem and the vibe inside our businesses that is distinct from our workplaces, what is the point, right? So if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna go out and do a side gig and, if you're doing it for similar reasons as me, you got to do it intentionally and make very specific shifts, right? So if you think just leaving your W-2 and starting a side gig without any introspection and changes to your behavior and mindset, you got another thing coming. You're just going to recreate it. It's just like any other psychological thing. You're just going to recreate it if it's not examined, right? And changed. So, there's that. My next point is about how my business refined as my nervous system healed. So nervous system healing is a big part of my story and journey post convent, all the way through being a business owner. If you guys don't know about my convent journey and you want to, let me know. I could share about it. I have a whole Instagram highlights on it. I used to have loads of videos on here about it. I've taken them down because they were a long, long time ago, but I'm happy to um, make a recap anytime soon. But I'm kind of an open book about it. So, um, yeah, my business. So I needed a lot of healing after my convent burnout and all of my other work burnout situations. I went through a couple years of healing my nervous system. And what I've learned, and also not only from my business, but from seeing the businesses of my own clients over time who have also done their own nervous system healing, is your business can only operate at the pace and capacity of your own nervous system. So if you have someone, or if you are someone who operates best under urgency and sorry, of course, I need to plug this in. Urgency and, pressure. If that's the type of employee you are, that's the type of business you're going to create unless you shift that intentionally by working with your nervous system, right? So if you carry a lot of what we call like unmetabolized trauma in your body from your employed life to being self-employed, it's like you're just going to keep creating that for yourself and for the people you're working with. So if what you're seeking in becoming employed is spaciousness, ease, freedom. If you're like me with a highly sensitive nervous system and you don't have the bandwidth to like stay at that high level of stimulation and overstimulation and urgency that a lot of businesses work under, then you need to learn about learn your limits as a highly sensitive person and your boundaries, but also look at your historical trauma. Because for me, it was a blend of both. Like, yes, I'm a highly sensitive person, so I do get overstimulated easier than most in a workplace environment. And I had trauma from all these workplace burnouts. And I needed to and could heal a lot of that. So over time, from 2019 to now, I've healed a lot of that. And what you do when you heal your nervous system is you kind of like when you start out, your nervous system has like low capacity. It's like already burnt out and shriveled, essentially. As you heal pieces, it kind of blossoms back open and over time heals up, blossoms, opens. And so you have this more capacity for everything, for stress, for taking on new clients, for, relationships, all of the things that, a human being can take into their life. Your nervous system opens up and is like, I can hold all that, and I can actually hold it and not collapse, or I can actually hold it and not, create chaos around it, or whatever your pattern was. So it takes time, but it is worth it, because otherwise you're just going to stay here and you're going to just create a work life experience for yourself as a self-employed person like this, instead of more spacious, easeful, regulated, right? Yeah, so just examples of what I did to help heal my nervous system. I did like a 3-week at-home course. If you're new to any of this, my first resource would be Irene Lyon. She is on YouTube. She has a free 3-week course. She has like more intensive courses. Even just her YouTubes, just listen to them and learn. You can learn so much. She's like, in my opinion, one of the goats of like modern day trauma education. And I did her 3-week course. And then I worked with someone for a year, one-on-one, who was trained in somatic. She was a somatic practitioner. So she was trained in somatic experiencing, which is a type of one-on-one therapy, but it's not just talk therapy. It's like working with the sensations in your body caused by triggers and trauma and working through them. So I did that for a year, and that was huge for me. And it opened up a lot of capacity and spaciousness. And so what you do in your body, your business is an extension of your nervous system. So as I was like healing this, as that was blossoming back open from being very shriveled and like, I just think of my time in the convent and like when I came home and after all those moments of burnout from different jobs, I just felt like this, I was like, I cannot, I can't let anything else in. I can barely hold what is already in there. And so as you heal, it's like it starts to open up, feels healed, and then it can like stretch open and receive more of whatever. So that was kind of my experience of somatic healing and going through working one-on-one. So I highly recommend that if this is a thing for you, burnout, overstimulation, if you've had chronic stress, like that's what I had in the convent. It was just chronic stress, over responsibility. Um, yeah, it's literally a whole nother era of videos, but I highly recommend doing somatic therapy. I think it is more effective for many reasons in the type of trauma. Yeah, I think it's more effective than talk therapy. I'll just say that. I think talk therapy has its place. We need to be seen, heard, and validated in what we went through. And that doesn't heal what is trapped and going on in your system, right? So only your body can do that. And so you need to get in there and get comfortable with it. We all have it. It's become very mainstream to do the trauma work. So just start by watching some videos and learning. Education is literally the first pillar of it. So you got to do it. Yeah, but I would say, even thinking of my clients who have done this, I've been with some people for like 5, 6 years. I've been with some people for like 2 years. And I can say that as they grew and healed, went on different retreats, did different things to kind of grow and heal, they're making better boundaries in their businesses. They're having smaller office hours. They're not being as available. They're truly taking time off and putting supports in place for themselves when they're off so that they really are off. They're not like checking things and having to maintain things. So I've seen it happen even in the clients who I work for, that our businesses are an extension of our nervous system. So if you're trying to feel differently from how you felt as an employee, it's probably not just the place of work. It's probably also you. And so you need to introspect and go there and unravel some of that if you're trying to create a different work experience for yourself by being self-employed. If being self-employed is your answer, I agree, that's a great answer. And you have to be in a different state and do things differently than when you were in an employee state doing things the old way. And the answer to that is lies in your nervous system, both being highly sensitive person, if that is you, and any trauma that needs to be seen. So I want to give you one huge example of how I made a decision based on my nervous system that was actually, from looking outside in, people will be like, why you basically demoted yourself? Like, why did you let that title go? Like, you could have been good for a long time with that position. And just explain that my reasonings for doing it. And a huge piece was my nervous system. So as I've said in many other videos, I was an executive assistant for a multi LLC owner for the period of about 2 years fully. And I had worked, yeah, I was her EA for for 2 years fully. And it was great. It was the position I thought I always wanted. When I had left the Art Center and kind of became a VA in the very beginning in 2019, that was my vision, was to be someone's single right-hand gal as their virtual assistant / executive assistant who was a small business owner. And so I had landed it, and I had landed it in 2022. And I even told her that. I was like, this was like my dream when I left the workplace, was to find someone who I could be this role with. And it was really great. We still work together. I'm her VA now. And I adore this person, and I think she does like phenomenal work in the world. And I admire her a lot. And as her VA, I got this like very close experience, not as her VA, excuse me, as her EA, executive assistant. Executive assistant has like some clout to it, right? It's like, oh, you're an EA, you're an executive assistant. It sounds professional. It sounds socially acceptable as, a career. And um, it was, when I tell people, oh, I'm an executive assistant for, a woman who owns a few businesses, it's like, oh, okay. But the thing is, I learned by being an EA that, at least for her, but I think for many roles like that, you kind of have to become their second brain. She's holding a lot. She had essentially three active businesses, and um, she's holding all of that and all of her staff members and her clients and, the membership and the social medias. And because you're her EA, you're also holding that and responsible for a lot of that. And almost to the point of, it almost felt like, you know, and I see this with other business owners too, who I wasn't their EA, but I was their VA, but I could see that they were looking for someone who they wanted to be their EA. They want someone to be able to offload the holding responsibility onto. And I didn't want to be that person anymore. And I didn't want to have to hold that. These women have, and this isn't only my client who I was an EA for, but I'm thinking of some other ones who I've worked with. They hold a lot. It's a big world. They're making big empires. They're amazing. They want to go big or go home. And like, I am not that girl. I just am not. And I can do fabulous work in certain wheelhouses, but I don't want to be someone's who owns an empire. I don't want to be their second brain. And so for me, that part of being an EA, I started to realize, oh, you know, um, this actually isn't what I want. I'd rather have less responsibility and intensity and work for a couple people than have all this responsibility and intensity working for one person as an EA. And so that was my one reason. It was like a nervous system thing. I just couldn't, because I'm not that way. I think she needs someone who is with her in that bigness. I'm someone who wants a small, peaceful life, essentially, with the freedom to do whatever I want. Um, and, some other business owners want to build loads of businesses and just go big or go home all the time. And yeah, I think we both eventually realized that I am not that girl, but this was my decision to leave the EA position. And so I left and went out my own to be a VA. I had already had two clients at the time. So I was kind of working up to this move. I had two VA clients who I was working small time with on the side. I left my job as a VA, and then she turned around and hired me back as a VA. So it was so much better. It's been great for me. I know it's been a struggle for her to find the right fit. I feel like she's found a good fit now. And now we're 2 years later. It took her a while to find the right fit of someone who could fill the shoes she wanted filled. But for me, my experience with working with her has been so much better. I was working as an EA for her 25 hours a week. Now I only work 8, give or take. So my responsibilities have gone way down. I'm literally only in the things that are mainly my wheelhouse for her. And it's still great. I, love her, and her businesses for the most part are exciting and thriving, and there's always stuff to do. And, I enjoy it a lot still working for her. But the other reason I left, and I don't want to admit this because this was a huge decision, a huge reason for my decision of stepping down from the EA position, is because I also realized I just read the writing on the wall. As her EA, I'm somewhat in the know of finances and the things of the business, like on that level. And I just read the writing on the wall and I knew she wasn't ever going to be able to pay me what I was hoping for as in that role. And um and so I knew I could leave and make more money, but charging my own rates. And that's exactly what I did. So it was a twofold. It was one, I wasn't that girl. I did not want to hold the world up for her. And I don't want to do that. And I'm very clear. Even I had, my other client who's a lawyer, she was looking for that in the beginning. And I was very clear with her. And I was like, I am not that girl. I have done that. It is not for me. These are my wheelhouses. This is what I'm great at. And I want to stay here. You need, that position is a totally different like mindset and personality. So you got to know like, and that takes time to learn. I had to be an EA to feel what that felt like in my nervous system and then be like, oh, actually, I don't want all this responsibility, right? So, and that's okay. It was a huge, it was like an accelerated learning program for me as a VA because I got so much behind the scenes experience of this multi LLC business owner who had, very different businesses going on. So not very different, adjacent, but still vastly different vibes. So, I left this position of being an EA for nervous system reasons and for money reasons. But money is related to the nervous system, right? It didn't feel right to me to keep at this high level of responsibility and intensity as an EA without feeling fully compensated for it. So it was a nervous system move for me also, the money piece, because I knew I could go out there and charge more for doing even less intense work. I just knew I could, and that's exactly what but I already had done that because I had contracted two clients on the side already for almost, I don't know, it would have been like 10 or so more dollars an hour just out of the gate. So I had already kind of proved it to myself. So yeah, it was a good learning experience for me. I'm grateful and I still love her and you know, we work together today. And I think, she has found someone who better fits that role. So it's like business, when you work with people, it really is, you can fill a spot for somebody for so long. And then it's like you might not be the right fit for that role anymore. And everybody has to read the writing on the wall. And that's okay. I mean, that means like the business is evolving and so is everyone else. And so it's okay. Um, but for me, leaving that role, while people may look at it and be like, why did you leave an executive assistant position? I mean, it just sounds like you could just be in that for life. And it's like, I was, um, I wasn't that I was unhappy or burnt out with that. I wasn't, but I didn't feel compensated enough for the level of responsibility I had. That's kind of what it came down to. And so now, though, I feel like it was a successful move because now I work for, three or four VA clients at a lower level of intensity and responsibility, charging more per hour, and I'm my own boss. I'm not having to be a W-2 and report a certain amount of hours and all of that. So for me, it was a win because that was my last W-2 role. That was 2 years ago, and may it be so that it stays that way. So for me, it was a successful move. And that I think is like, sorry, my hair with the mic. That's I think the thing that you have to embrace if you identify as a highly sensitive person or autistic business owner or any of these kind of like, you know, peripheral personality types where we don't fit the mold of what you see in like mainstream business is like success is different for us, yo. Success is different for us. It is, for me, success is ease, spaciousness in my schedule, freedom in my schedule, and the ability to do the type of work I prefer doing. It's not huge profit, more clients, better than my competitors, all that BS. Like, I don't even like speaking that language. So I think it's also important to normalize that success for us can mean a small, peaceful life doing some work that I enjoy, not necessarily, building a business empire. So I want to go into, now that I've done that, right? I made the shift. I'm a VA kind of full time, and now get into the practical boundaries I put in place as a VA, so that you can kind of see how this plays out in real time, right? Or in real life. Like, this is from experience from all of my times of burnout, all of my work experiences. Now in my current business, things I have in place to keep my schedule spacious and easeful for me. Um, and then that'll be it. So these are for my like VAs or service provider people. So you know how I do it. Now, my first thing I knew going in, I'm not going to spend too much time on these because they're kind of straightforward. But one of the big things that I knew would be my like absolute not as a VA is I'm not on call. And I see, and this is a nervous system thing for me. I know there are VAs who are on call, who are available to all of their clients from like 9 to 5 or 10 to 3, whatever it might be. I don't promise that, and that is not me. I make it very clear in the contract when we talk, all the things that I am not an on-call VA. Yes, you can message me. We use Telegram. Telegram is like my app of choice for messaging clients if they don't have their own internal system. Like with some people, I have Slack and things, and I'm in their workspace. But um, like even so, you can message me anytime, but I am not gonna get back to you immediately necessarily unless I'm literally working in your workspace that day and that hour. So I'm not on call, but I generally get back to people within a day, within 24 hours. I can at least respond to them and say, hey, I saw this. I'll put it on my list for this week. But not being on call is great. I also don't keep work apps like on my phone. I don't even have my client messenger app on my phone, Telegram. I don't have, in some cases, business owners have me have a workspace email, right? So it's not just my VA email, my Kelly Sue VA email, which I do have on my phone, but I also have other workspace emails that I have access to or that are mine or whatever. Those I don't keep on my phone. So if you want to access me as a VA, you have to email me to my VA email address. That I will see on my phone. But again, I don't do work on the weekends and I don't do work when I'm not working. So it's like if my day ends at 3 or 4, I might look at it and be like, oh, they got back to me and this is this, that. And I'm like, it'll wait until tomorrow. So I don't keep work apps on my phone. There's no Slack on my phone. There's no Telegram and no other workplace emails on my phone. I also don't I just say texting my phone, like texting my personal line is just not an option unless it's a literal emergency, like, your website is being hacked. And even then, I don't think I'd be the right person for it. But like, something very urgent. Otherwise, don't text my phone about work stuff, please. It'll just annoy me. I also don't have a ton of meetings. I love not having meetings. So I only have meetings when they're required. Like, sometimes if we're starting a new project that's kind of on the big side or there's some big transition happening or whatever. It depends on the client, it depends on what I'm doing, but I aim to not have a lot of meetings. Most weeks I don't have any, and that is how I prefer it. I'm someone who likes I'm like, give me the work and go do your thing. I will do the work, send it to you. If we need to communicate, we will via email, via Telegram. I don't think most things need a video chat. Some things do, but yeah, I don't have meetings regularly. Um, because yeah. Okay. I also take my time with client selection, which I've gone over in a couple videos recently. You can go back and see like why I don't, there are some videos on like why I don't say yes to every client, all about my client selection process and how I'm vetting them. And I go very slowly with that. And that has been to my benefit as a highly sensitive person. Um, Same thing with doing a 2 month trial as a VA. I don't take on, I don't just sign a contract and like go with someone. We do a 2 month trial. That's also to help me, my nervous system, in this like buffering stage of like, okay, we're going to take on a new client and this is what it's going to feel like. And are we really sure we're okay with this? And after 2 months, I'll either know it's a yes or it's a no. And so that is very helpful for me. I think I also have a video recently on the 2 month trial period. So if you're curious about that, that is my process for VA clients. Before signing them for real ongoing, we do a 2 month trial and it's been great. And I only say yes to work I want to do. So like a recent example, like I got an inquiry from actually someone over in Phoenix. I was still in like a community, oh my gosh, there's a blue jay right there. He's like knocking on the window. Hello. Oh, he's like hopping on the windowsill. How funny. Okay. I'm getting very distracted by this. I think it's a blue jay, or was it a woodpecker? I don't know. That's so funny. Um, I got an inquiry for for VA work that I said no to because she was like, we're looking for someone to help us kind of orient and get all of our clients onto a new CRM. And they were like this industrial painting company. And I was just like, no and no. Sorry. Like that has the company, I wasn't interested in the business, but also CRMs are not my wheelhouse either. Have I worked in them? Absolutely. But they're not like my specialty and I don't get excited about them. So I was like, sorry, that's not really my wheelhouse, but thanks for reaching out. So, you know, it's a perfect example of like, do I need work now? I will soon. One of my clients is going on a sabbatical, which is kind of cool. She's good. She's leaving for a year or more. And so in the fall, I will lose her. And so, yes, I am on the search now actually for a new VA client, but I'm not just going to take that because it's available. I'm going to spend the time and take the time and find the right fit because that is how I do things. And that is what has led me to these clients who I have for long periods of time who I actually enjoy working with. So, good example. And the other thing is another boundary of mine, doesn't have to be yours either, but I only work as a VA 20 hours a week, max. It's all I can do. I can't do this type of work for 40 hours a week, but that doesn't mean you can't or other people can't. That's just me. I do a good job. I do great work, but 20 hours is my max, yo. I can't do VA work for 40 hours a week. So, that has been a boundary for me, but then I supplement that, right? I've had a very thriving cat sitting, pet sitting business since 2019. It's been a huge pillar of income for me. And I do the one-on-ones, the mentoring, the coaching, the readings, all the things on my, website. So I have a couple supplemental incomes coming in that have been able to allow me to only work part-time as a VA. So, as a person making this move, it doesn't have to look one way. You don't have to just go apples to apples. You can go apples to oranges, grapefruit, and kiwi, and that can also work. So, think out of the box. So I will leave you with that. And just as a last like reflection, if you have left the W-2 world and you're in your own business, have you brought energy rhythms and nervous system habits and mindset habits from employee life into your business that you're seeing reflected and repeated that you don't want to do anymore? Or if you haven't taken the leap yet, if you haven't started your business yet, but you're in the kind of planning or contemplating stage, what would you like to see and feel differently from the employee experience that you've had and are having to when you have your own business? How do you want to feel? For me, that was the biggest thing. How do I want to feel when I do this? And for me, that was exhaled, spacious. There's no like urgency over my head. There isn't a lot of stress all the time. Like I can wake up feeling easeful. Oh, cool. I can put in a few hours today for so and so. I love that for me. And that's it, very light. So, how do you want to feel when you make this move? And how are you going to get there? What do you have to do differently in your mind, in your body, in your choices, in your boundaries that I talked about, right? So, yeah, if this is helpful or if you're in this spot and you would like one-on-one guidance, that is why, it's exactly why I created my business mentorship chats. They're just one-on-ones. We can do voice note version if you're a voice note guy, or we can do one-on-one like video chats. So whatever is your preference, I have both options on my website. You just go kellysufits.com/mentorship. You can kind of read through the options, but it's literally just a chat. Like, let's chat. Let me hear where you're at. What are your sensitivities? What do you want to go away from? What are you looking to do with your business? And how we can help you like arrange that. So you can go there and book one, and I'd love to chat. Okay, that's enough for now, friend. Bye for now.